Mega Man Issue 41. Mega Man tells people that the launch into space was successful as he's sitting on a Rush who's got a new space mode, complete with an air dome. Even though Mega Man shouldn't need to breathe as a robot. I guess the air dome's just in case he needs to transport humans across space, but it's so small that it doesn't seem like it'd hold enough oxygen for that anyways. But the same could be said about the flying cars in the Jetsons. But if he's never gonna transport any humans, then the only appeal of this space mode is that it's different from the games. Otto cheers for Mega Man, and Wily puts his hand on Dr. Light's shoulder while reassuring him. And then Comic Space gets wasted by a boring one-dimensional evil robot talking in the new Wily Fortress. He gets annoyed at how Mega Man's shooting the giant robot because he somehow thinks that's blunt instead of its only option. And I guess he thinks he's cheating by having Rush spring him while he shoots at the robot. And then he gets annoyed at the video footage of Mega Man using Rush Jet to cheat. Mega Man confronts Top Man trying to reason with him in a predictable way, when of course he can't listen to him because of how he was reprogrammed. It'd be much better if most of the Robot Masters didn't talk when fighting Mega Man, because it's just a boring waste of time. He wants more of a challenge from Mega Man. It makes no sense for him to be programmed in such a self-destructive way. He's immune to lasers when he's spinning, and he gives Mega Man a hard time in a predictable way. So far, there's nothing worth talking about in his fight, until Rush bites him, which gives Mega Man the chance to charge shot him. Yeah, one hit, that's satisfying. You'd think after the last adventure, Wily would have made his Robot Masters tough enough to survive more than one charge shot, but apparently he's too stupid to be capable of that. Somehow, he's still able to talk before passing out, and somehow he's able to compliment Mega Man when there's no reason Wily would program him like that. Mega Man looks sad and pets Rush and copies Top Man's data, and also secures his IC chip. Dr. Light apologizes, and is about to waste time asking if he'll be alright, so naturally Wily interrupts him and tells him to send the IC chip and weapon data along with the energy element. Mega Man says he didn't come prepared for that, because the teleharnesses are only meant to send back the energy elements, and he doesn't want the IC chips to get damaged or corrupted on the way. He tells Dr. Light he'll be okay and just needs to make some repairs. He says he'll store the IC chips with the repair tools in Rush and keep him out of the fighting most of the time. There's a teleport beam, and the IC chip gets sent to Otto, and Wily plans to install the energy element into Gamma. I'm glad Roll tells him he can't. Dr. Light apologizes and says that Gamma's so locked down that only he can install the energy elements. He justifies that he doesn't want anyone to think they're sneaking Wily past his ban on robotics. He thanks Wily for offering to store the thing in the hangar. Otto nicely tells Roll to go easy on Wily, even though she's barely done anything against him aside from glaring. She isn't constantly insulting him. Roll lampshades how overly trusting her family is, and tells Otto to look into odd signals coming from the lab, something that Wily should have anticipated and thus not bothered doing. Also, it's sure it's inconvenient that she's able to detect odd signals for no reason. What's that have to do with cleaning the house? The text box somehow expects me to believe the mining asteroid was abandoned, which doesn't make sense. Unless it only got abandoned recently because the Robot Masters invaded it, because otherwise why would the mining company give up on making money off this thing? And not immediately have other mining companies come here. And then Snake Man has some boring one-dimensional narration over Mega Man going through his stage just how you'd expect. Boy, the only thing that's not boring about this adaptation is the non-game scenes, which are just what you'd expect as well. I just don't see the point of people reading scenes like this, if they're exactly like the game, but with predictable dialogue dragging it out. Mega Man tells Rush that he's got a lot of important stuff in him and he doesn't want him to get hurt. Clearly that's not being childish and just compassionate for the sake of it. Eventually Snake Man ambushes him and covers him with little green things that look like worms, not snakes. I can't understand why Wily thought these would be dangerous. How are they even hurting anybody? Aren't they just attaching themselves and that's it? It's not like they explode, like would be common sense. Is this gonna be yet another Robot Master that somehow dies in one hit? Actually, no, he punches them into the wall and shoots him, and then Rush bites him to hold him still for him to charge shot him. So that's 4 hits. That's slightly better. And I also like that Mega Man didn't waste time reasoning with him. Now, if it was 6 hits, the fights would be alright. Rush didn't bite the Robot Masters in the game, so he's adding creativity. Even if not so much creativity that I wonder how the writer came up with that. Like in the early Archie Sonic issues. Mega Man's tired from the fight, and Dr. Light asks him if he's alright. I never understood why he kept calling himself Ground Control. It's not like people other than Dr. Light and Wily are talking to him. He's not an astronaut being talked to by actual ground control, so what's with the formality? Mega Man says he's okay, and he gets worried because there's no extra help out here in space. And I immediately wonder why none of the original Robot Masters were sent with him then. He doesn't have a time limit like in the last adventure, so he had all the time in the world for Dr. Light to gather some backup for him. Which would take just seconds anyways because his robots can teleport. So really it was stupid of him not to get Mega Man back up last time as well. I guess he doesn't want to endanger any other robot than Mega Man with those adventures because he'd feel bad for them. That just makes me wonder why he doesn't just give the copy chip to whatever Robot Master has free time and have him do the fighting. Because if he cares about Mega Man the most, it doesn't make sense for him to let him do it if he doesn't have to. It should have been explained that all of the original Robot Masters are busy with their jobs. And Dr. Light's just so considerate, he doesn't want to distract them from that for a dangerous mission, even though it's worth it for the greater good to give Mega Man no chance of failure. And he has too much faith in Mega Man to succeed alone, because he did on the first adventure and he likes him so much. Never mind that every other adventure item required backup. And just Rush isn't enough backup judging by how damaged he is now. I guess it can be believable that Dr. Light sent just him and Rush just because he has too much faith in the two of them and any doubt he has in their abilities gets ignored because he doesn't want to pull the Robot Masters away from the people they're working for, even though they'd all understand. It should have been explained that they're all busy then. And it's still unusually irresponsible of Dr. Light. Someone who's so responsible he trapped Mega Man for being happy he stunned evil robots. Mega Man thinking there's no extra help was just a mistake because it drew attention to a plot hole in every Mega Man game past the first. As the only justifications for it are just too thin, making Dr. Light out of character. Mega Man Issue 42. Roll notices sparks coming out of the energy element, which is somehow supposed to be justified by it being a powerful battery that spins through a lot. Dr. Light apologizes, and Mega Man uses Rush to head towards an asteroid that somehow has lava in it. That's not how asteroids work, and this would be justified in Sonic where there's chaos powers and emeralds and witches, but there's supposed to be no magic here. But apparently either people put lava here for no reason, or it was summoned here by a witch, and he's too naive to question it. Then eventually Shadow Man remembers being part of an army of robots being told to fight to escort Raw Moon to safety from the Star Marshals. I guess Raw Moon is immune to EMPs himself. But can't they send one at all of his robots? It's the future. And it's so meta that Shadow Man's somehow the only one in the group that doesn't have his mouth covered. That wouldn't be allowed. I guess the writer knew how boring Mega Man's uncreative fight with Shadow Man would be, because the focus is mostly on showing us his old teammates getting hit with lasers in space and him being threatened by a larger robot. Then for some unnecessary melodrama, a larger robot kills that one while being treated like he betrayed him and tells Shadow Man that he needs to practice his cover story. Eventually, Rush grabs a sharp projectile thrown at Mega Man, who's thankfully staying mostly silent. Meanwhile, Shadow Man grabs the idiot's ball because he somehow looks away, bragging while Mega Man's behind him and gets attacked. And there's no way an army man would be that undisciplined. He acts like a ninja, but the fact that he's from an army with a sergeant completely contrasts that. As usual, the slapstick is ruined by flashes of light, This was the case in the earliest of Archie Sonic too, like when Hamlin got hurt, but at least that was creative and thus interesting. Well, this wastes an entire page on redundant boredom after that. Dr. Light tells Mega Man he did excellent work and should repair himself, and somehow Wily doesn't give himself away to Dr. Light when he clearly almost says he'll call Brakeman when it's been 6 months. So there's no reason he'd say that by accident from force of habit. He goes to the bathroom to be alone and calls Proto Man, who's somehow being attacked by Quickman, even though Quickman was made to be loyal to Wily. Not make him like that would be a violation of common sense. Proto Man reminds Quickman that he was ordered to hand over his IC chip and weapon data. Why is IC chip though? Just to force this scene to happen. When Proto Man makes sure that Wily can talk to Quickman through his helmet, he tells him to be obedient and he says he has to obey. Then what took so long? If the Robot Masters have such free will, why was he the only one who fought Proto Man over it? As I have to assume Proto Man still wants revenge on Dr. Light and thinks Wily would make a good ruler of the world, Otto says he'd attack through the signal Wily was putting out, but he somehow believes him when he says he doesn't know about it. Then the story gets especially boring when for no reason we see another Robot Master blathering. He wonders if he doesn't stand a chance and makes a duplicate that gives him a pep talk and flatters him. Why are there so many panels of this? Go figure he'll use his copies against Mega Man. So there's a dragged out fight where Mega Man has a hard time in the predictable way until he fires Snake Man's weapon, and that makes him win immediately. Gemini Man says he started out as a mining robot and calls Mega Man sweet for planning to rescue him, but him acting nice was just so that Mega Man could be hit in the back, because he distracted him so much talking to him that he didn't check to make sure all of the others were defeated. Mega Man Issue 43. Mega Man dodges the laser from behind, which really wasn't shown at all in the previous issue, and he instantly charge shots Gemini Man to defeat him. That meant the cliffhanger of last issue was fake. Of course the comic was desperate for sales when it's the most boring it's ever been. Mega Man expects Dr. Light to believe he avoided any major damage when he just said he saw a severe damage report. Mega Man recklessly says he'll have plenty of time for repairs later because he doesn't want one of the robots to hurt people because he spent time doing that. And just as I was about to say they're all in space anyways, Dr. Light says that one of the processing plants that gets material from the asteroids shows signs of Robot Masters tampering with the workforce. And I would assume workforce means human employees, but if it doesn't, and none of the asteroids have civilians, then Mega Man is just being stupid to force tension. Speaking of stupid, somehow Wily thinks it's not a reckless waste of time to not even try to make a proper excuse for leaving and then whisper to Magnet Man that Mega Man's on his way, when you'd think a robot like Otto would hear him regardless, and there's no reason this would help Magnet Man. Then comic space gets wasted on Magnet Man, who blames himself for his own brothers getting defeated because the missing asteroids tactic was his idea. Why does he say missing instead of abandoned? Did the writer forget? He then wonders why Wily didn't protect Magnet Man's systems from magnetic interference. A page is wasted when you'd think it'd be mostly about showing Mega Man going through the levels. This is like if in an adaptation of Sonic 1, you just saw Eggman talking to himself the whole time Sonic was in some of the levels, and we only saw one panel of them. Mega Man sees a flying magnet and destroys it, and eventually Magnet Man flies around, and eventually Mega Man hangs from Rush Jet to shoot at Magnet Man, who somehow forgets if he's on the ceiling or not and jumps and falls. Mega Man throws sharp stuff at him and wonders why Dr. Light programmed him to feel nauseous from motion sickness. It's because he was handed the Idiot Ball. There's no reason Mega Man wouldn't have attacked Magnet Man in all of the time he had boring dialogue. In the early Archie Sonic comics, Magnet Man saying that magnetic interference could get him defeated would have resulted in magnetic interference getting him defeated because he constantly used the check of his gun. But that didn't happen here, so it was just a waste of time that he said that. And instead he got the Idiot Ball. He says Mega Man can't take a step, And it's clear that Magnet Man lost as a whole page is wasted. Speaking of a page being wasted, we see Xander again for no reason. And if the writer thought to have a guard ask how he made another shiv, he shouldn't have written it. This page seems familiar, especially with him somehow getting away with the words marking himself. He wouldn't write that in Sonic. What's with a double standard? Megman wonders why Needleman would be at an old dockyard and thinks Magnet Man lied to him. Why did Magnet Man even tell him where? Well, it's because Wily would want him to get killed by the other Robot Masters, but that should have been explained. Then Needleman wastes comic space boringly thinking to himself while he swings around for no reason, and lampshades Wily's stupidity like Magnet Man did. It's like how Eggman's stupidity is constantly lampshaded in IDW, and that annoys fans of his character. So I wonder if Wily fans hate this. Eventually, Megman sees Needleman and somehow asks if he's crocheting. I guess Megman only knows what that is at his age because he was first activated with an English vocabulary already. But if he knows what that is, how could he possibly say this word instead of saying knitting? At least Needleman has a hobby that makes sense, and it's different from the game. And of course Megman isn't mean enough to laugh at him for it because that'd be out of character and sexist. Megman somehow doesn't get sarcasm, and it's explained why the place they're in isn't in theme for Needleman. A yarn factory wouldn't be intimidating, but it would have been creative. Megman grabs some of the needles thrown at him and throws them back at him. And somehow, Needleman decides to waste time telling him to never do that again. Megman wastes time asking a stupid question he should already know the answer to, and somehow needs to be told that he gets a nice fuzzy definition to work within by being built to help, while his enemies don't have that luxury. A spike on a rope gets launched, and Rush bites it. And then Needleman gets defeated with lasers. What's the appeal of fights if the annoying characters will only get hurt in one panel? Megman apologizes, and somehow a robot of Wily's is programmed to tell him to shoot him. He cries, and so does Roll as Dr. Light tells him to stay strong, and Roll agrees to get him water. Otto wouldn't ask Wily what he's up to because obviously he would have already heard what he said a few panels ago. He'd know he wants weapon data and IC chips. Wily opens the panel on his chest and pulls stuff out of it roughly. Sure is inconvenience that Dr. Light made it so easy to open his panel when Wily's living with him. At least have him require a screwdriver for it. This issue is an adaptation of Mega Man 3 that's mostly boring because of a lack of creativity. You know it's sad when the only thing that really wakes me up is that Rush bites the Robot Masters. At least Snake Man's fight was kind of handled well because it went on for 4 hits without Mega Man wasting time trying to reason with clearly insane robots, who are so one-dimensional that their constant chatter is boring. I don't think all of this predictable dialogue adds anything to the plot of the game. The plot of this game is bare bones, just having him progress and shoot, beating Top Man with 1 hit. It's good that there's more of a focus on Mega Man going through the levels, but I couldn't care less about the narration. The only engaging scenes are the ones that aren't in the game, and they're pointlessly predictable too. But at least I get to see Wily acting nice. This issue had Mega Man one-shot a Robot Master and get ambushed from behind by another after a dragged-out, uncreative fight with him. And it makes me wonder why Wily insisted on his perfectly good Robot Masters giving up their IC chips, and how they had the free will to not instantly agree. You'd think he would just send them after Mega Man all at once. Why not? It was another really boring issue because it was an uncreative game adaptation, and even the flashback on Shadow Man's past didn't really impress me. So he was part of another army who had enemies. That must have taken all of 2 seconds. Shadow Man lost because of the idiot ball forcing him to look away from his enemy. And Gemini Man scene was the most boring of all. Why isn't it obvious that we'd rather see annoying characters get attacked constantly with impact shown than see them make the heroes run away helpless for most of the time? That destroys the whole appeal. This issue is about Mega Man taking a while to one-shot some more Robot Masters, and some pointless paddings interspersed between those uncreative panels. At least stuff happens that doesn't in the game during the fights. But still, there's no appeal to seeing these fights when the bad guys only suffer for a second and talk too much.